The business backlash surrounding North Carolina's anti-LGBT law gaining some high-profile support this week. More than 80 business leaders from the likes of Google, Facebook, Apple, IBM, Pfizer, American Airlines, and many, many more signing a letter calling for a full repeal. Yesterday, we spoke with a senior executive from Bayer, which has also publicly opposed this law.
We were surprised by the law. No doubt it went through in 12 hours. But let's be clear. We have, as I mentioned, thousands of employees in North Carolina. We have significant science presence down there and operations down there. We are part of that community. We will make sure that we have the dialogue. The governor's actually been quite pro-business for the last few years. We've worked with him. The opportunity here is for dialogue, and we must do what is right. At Bayer, we don't believe in any law that's going to have any level of discrimination or any impact on the quality of our employees.
Well, joining us now, first on CNBC, North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest. Mr. Forest, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity.
So what would you say to Tim Cook and Mark Zuckerberg and that gentleman at Bayer and the leadership at Bank of America, which is one of the biggest corporations in your state, who have all come out objecting to this new law?
Well, I'd say read the bill. I mean, that's first and foremost. They haven't read the bill. And quite frankly, I mean, to set the record straight, even your lead-in called this the anti-LGBT bill. Let's back up a little bit and set the record straight on what actually happened in Charlotte. The Charlotte City Council, against their legal counsel's advice, against advice from a lot of folks, went beyond their constitutional authority, and they passed an ordinance that was about public accommodation in the city of Charlotte that, again, beyond their constitutional authority, but even more than that, created a loophole that allowed men, sexual predators, people that perhaps are pedophiles to go into a women's bathroom, to go into a women's locker room, to go into a women's shower facility, and to make that legal to do that. And, government's first and foremost priority is the protection of its citizens, and especially the protection of women and children. And that's all this bill did. And so these business leaders that are outcrying right now have not even read the bill. And I've talked to many of them who admit they haven't read the bill.
Well, Mr. Lieutenant Governor, the critics would say it's not protecting all people, because what you're essentially doing here, the upshot of that legislation, is requiring transgender people to have to stick to their birth certificate in order to enter a bathroom, no matter how they're dressed or how they identify. Is that wrong?
Well, listen, let's back up and talk about what the bill actually did. The bill is an anti-discrimination bill. It was the first public anti-discrimination bill in the state's history. In fact, it goes beyond federal policy for anti-discrimination. It's very interesting to me that, there was no clamoring about discrimination prior to this Charlotte ordinance. And after we strike down the ordinance, all of a sudden, North Carolina is this discriminatory state. Nothing really changed in that. We just said that men can't go in women's bathrooms and women's shower rooms. That's what we said. But listen, the business community has the right to do whatever they want. This bill doesn't prohibit the business community from having one single restroom for all people, all their employees, if they want to. It doesn't prohibit the NBA from doing that in their arenas. All it said was in public facilities and in public schools that you have to have bathrooms based on your birth certificate gender.
Mr. Forrest, I have read the bill, House Bill 2. I've got it here in front of me. And on the one hand, it does explicitly discriminate against transgender people. And secondly, it does,
nowhere in the bill does it explicitly discriminate against transgender people. It doesn't happen anywhere in the bill.
It defers to your birth certificate on what bathroom that you should go into. Let's leave that to one side, because it
also provides for the ability to have a single stall unisex facility anywhere for anybody at any time. The bill provides for that. This really freed up business. What the Charlotte City Council said was, they said, you know what, business community in North Carolina, you have to abide by what we say. You cannot put male or female on a bathroom stall in the city of Charlotte. But the business community is free to do whatever they want anyway.
So just to come back to HB2, because you don't think many people have read it, which I have, it also singles out the LGBT community for disfavored treatment, because what you do is you ring fence who is protected against discrimination quite literally, and then say that anybody that you've not defined as being able to be not discriminated against really has no case in law. So by excluding those on sexual orientation, they can't sue in the state. So it is actually deferential treatment to the LGBT community in addition to what it's doing to transgender people.
Absolutely not. This anti-discrimination bill is actually broader than federal law, and anybody that's being discriminated against in the state of North Carolina still has protections under state law and under federal law. They have the right to go into court in the state of North Carolina and be protected for that discrimination. There's nothing discriminatory about that. Listen, the business community in North Carolina has loved North Carolina for years. It's one of the fastest growing states in America. Charlotte's one of the best business communities in America. Forbes magazine, Fortune, Site Selection magazine have ranked North Carolina #1 in the nation for best place to do business, best place to start a business, best place to live, best place to raise a family. If we were this great discriminatory community in North Carolina, none of that would have happened, and North Carolina wouldn't be growing the way that it is.
Let me ask you, sir, where are you getting your legal advice now from? Because your Attorney General said last night that he's not prepared to prosecute cases, saying that it was a national disgrace. And surely any school district that actually implements HB2 is going to be in direct contradiction of Title IX, aren't they? Which leaves them open to huge liability and the loss potentially of $4.5 billion of federal spending from the Department of Education.
That's a real nice leftist lie that you're perpetrating there, but that doesn't exist at all. In fact, we've had great legal advice. Our Attorney General has disagreed with everything we've done in North Carolina. In fact, he hasn't prosecuted anything to protect the state of North Carolina since we've been in office. Our Attorney General happens to be running for governor right now, and so he's using this as a nice political stance to run for Attorney General. Our Attorney General really needs to step up and do his job and defend women and children from predators in bathrooms. Listen, 70% of North Carolinians agree with HB2, and I think it may be more than that. I've talked to business leaders who have said they haven't read the bill. They really didn't know anything about it. I've talked to people all over North Carolina. I travel the state every day. I've been meeting with audiences ever since we did this. I said, please, if there's one person in this audience that disagrees with this, please raise your hand and tell me why you think it's okay for men to walk in women's restrooms and for men to go into girls' locker rooms and girls' showers facilities in our state. And I haven't found one person yet to stand up and tell me why that's okay.
Let me bring it back to the economics for a moment, Mr. Forrest. If you look at the unemployment rate of North Carolina, certainly it's down from the crisis, but at 5.5%, it is higher than the national rate. If you look at underemployment, a bigger measure, which includes discouraged workers and people who have to be part-time workers because they can't find full-time jobs, we're over 11% in North Carolina, higher than the national average. I mean, you've got some economic distress at elevated levels, and now you have major corporations bashing your state. They haven't threatened to pull out, but that could come next. You have other states like New York who are banning state visits to your state. Are you really willing to put the cost, which could be billions and more jobs, at risk here?
There's no cost here. Listen, this is a big fantasy. It happened in Houston when Houston had the same ordinances. All these same cast of characters were coming out saying they were going to pull out of Houston. They weren't going to do business. Houston's still in business. They're still doing fine down there. Yeah, listen, we have a great economy here in North Carolina. Since we've been in control in North Carolina, we paid down state debt by over $3 billion. We've cut taxes by over $3 billion. Corporate income tax has been cut in half in North Carolina. Personal income tax has gone down. We paid off unemployment insurance by $2.8 billion and put $1 billion in the reserves there. We put $1.5 billion in the rainy day fund in North Carolina. We've created 260,000 new jobs in the last 3 years. People love North Carolina, and they're going to continue to love North Carolina regardless of this.
We'll see about that. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for coming to make the case. Dan Forrest of North Carolina.